I'm Steve Rosansky, President and CEO of the Newport Beach Chamber of Commerce, and I want to welcome you to our November edition of Wake Up Newport. We've got a great program for you this morning. We've got a real good catch of a speaker I'll introduce in a minute. But before I do that, I'm going to invite up Paul Tullio. Paul. He's with Gourmet Coffee Service. I hope I got that right. And he is our coffee service provider this morning. And we want to acknowledge him for his efforts. He was furiously brewing coffee this morning when he found out that the library coffee maker is no longer here. So he was under adverse conditions, but he performed admirably. Paul.
Thanks, Steve. Yes, I'm with Gourmet Coffee Service, and we do office coffee for businesses. So what we can do is put a brewing system in your location, and then we deliver the coffee, cream, and sugar once a month. So we have some samples out to take back to the office for you as well on the seats there. And if you guys need coffee or water for your office, please reach out. Gourmet Coffee Service, we're here to spoil you. So thank you again.
Thank you, Paul.
Give me a coffee basket, too. So.
Oh, that's right. If you get your business card in his little stevia box, I think that's what that is. Yeah, well, sugar. Yeah, well, it's not sort of sugar. He'll have a free coffee maker? Free coffee basket. Great. And there's little samples of coffee. You're welcome to take them home with you. They're on your seats this morning. Also, we have Colette's Catering with us this morning. She brought a great array of different offerings. I think there's a frittata back. Colette, come on, make your way up here, Colette. You have to speak. Frittatas and bagel knots and all kinds of good stuff. So she came all the way from, I think, where are you from, Fullerton? Fullerton, yeah. Long drive in the morning, but she made it on time. Colette's Catering.
Hello. Thanks for having us this morning, and I'm excited to come here and hear about what's going on in your great city. I just wanted to tell you a little bit about our business. We're a corporate and social caterer. We do half of our business with corporate clients, handling everything from their drop-off catering to their full-service galas. And we also handle a lot of social in-home catering and weddings. We work with a lot of venues and would love to help you over the holidays. We also have Gourmet to Go.
Great. Thank you to Colette and to Paul for providing the goodies this morning. I also want to thank the Credit Union of Southern California for sponsoring our program. Is Aaron here this morning? Aaron? Oh, Aaron. Hey, you want to say a few words? No? You sure? All right. Well, thank you again for being our sponsor. So before we get started with our speaker, there are a few VIPs with us this morning. So I'd like to introduce our mayor, Diane Dixon. There you go. This is probably... Let's see, November. No, you'll have one more chance to come to Wake Up Newport as the mayor, right? Well, unless you get reappointed, I guess you could do 2 years, right? You can only hope. I was mayor 1 year. It was a tough year. Our police chief, John Lewis, is with us. We have a couple city council candidates in case you guys didn't know there's an election next Tuesday. So we're having three open seats in our races. So with us this morning we have Will O'Neill in the back. And Jeff Herdman up here in front. And last but not least, I'll introduce Pierce Swan with the Irvine Ranch Water District. Not running for anything, yeah. And actually, we do have one other one I'll mention is Kim Brandt, our community services director. Oh, okay. You want to introduce yourself? Tim There you go. Tim was instrumental in helping us secure the speaker this morning, so thank you, Tim. He's anytime I call, he's always willing to help, and we appreciate that. So with that, I will get to our speaker, Frank Kim. He's the county CEO, Chief Executive Officer. Frank's been here with us, wow, it's even longer than I thought, 1.5 years now, huh, Frank? Does it seem like 1.5 years? Feels like 3. It's tough to wrangle those supervisors up there. They'd be a tough bunch to work for. Known equally for his expertise and his collaborative approach as a problem solver, Frank brings to the CEO role more than 25 years of experience in planning, organization, and direction, team leadership and supervision, program development and management, and financial services. He joined the county in 1995 as a staff accountant. Prior to being named CEO, Frank served as the county's chief financial officer since 2012. In collaboration with the executive management and the board of supervisors, as CFO, he was responsible for the county's $5.6 billion, 23 department, and 18,000 position budget. He also held the position of county budget director for more than 5 years, monitoring and preparing quarterly budget adjustments and developing the county's 5-year strategic financial plan. In previous county roles, he supervised the budget, payroll, accounting, collections, contract and procurement, real estate, clerical support functions of the $150 million, 1,400 position Orange County Probation Department from 2005 to 2007 as Director of Administration and Finance. So you know where all the skeletons are, right? I mean, you served in just about every position there is. Okay. You know where the money's hidden? That's what I want to know. Okay. Yeah, you know that too. He provided guidance to agencies and departments on long-range planning, capital improvement plans, and workforce planning documents as budget team manager with the county budget office from 2002 to 2005, and as interim reuse manager with the county's former local redevelopment authority in 2002. He oversaw activities at the former Marine Corps Air Station at El Toro, including base leases and facilities maintenance. Frank has held positions in private industry and higher education before embarking on his county career. He holds a master's of public administration degree and a bachelor's of accountancy from Cal State Long Beach. I give you Frank Kim.
Good morning. I want to thank you for the invitation. It's always a pleasure to come out, especially early in the morning, and speak to our community. It really is an honor, and it's something that I always enjoy doing because one of the things that I learned in working for the county and is kind of moving up through the organization is that as I come out and speak with organizations, there's always confusion as to what the county does. And that's part of what I enjoy speaking with groups about, because most of the residents in Orange County, they don't know the difference between city government, county government, special districts, and the state, and there's so much overlap. And it's always an opportunity for me to come out and talk to you about the wonderful things that our organization does in terms of our regional infrastructure. So the county really is focused on regional issues. Regional infrastructure meaning large roads, arterial highways. We've got the landfill system. We've got the airport here that's in your community, our regional park system, and a lot of the public safety activities. So we have the sheriff's office, which runs our jail. We've got the probation department, the district attorney's office. So there are all of these kinds of services that reach across all of the cities. And it's exciting that we have an organization that has 23 departments, and we serve a myriad of different services to various different groups in the county. We are the social safety net, so when people talk about the food stamp program, which is really what we call CalFresh, and it's a federal program, the county administers that on behalf of the residents. We administer our Medi-Cal program, and a number of other things that people take for granted that are part of a larger federal infrastructure. It's managed here locally by your county. And how the county is funded and how it operates are some of the topics that I really would enjoy speaking with you about. But let me first share with you some of the priorities of our county and our board. So people ask, Frank, you've been the CEO for about a year and a half. What are your priorities and what are the priorities of the board? And I can tell you very clearly that our priorities are really to finish those things that we've talked about for 10, 15 years. We've been talking quite a long time about bankruptcy. 94, the county had a bankruptcy. It was at the time the largest municipal bankruptcy that we've had. This July, we finish our final debt payment on that, and we'll be completely out of the bankruptcy. What does that mean to our residents? Well, number one, we were essentially allocating money from our flood control district, our parks, our waste management system to help pay for those bankruptcy items. So now that we're coming out of bankruptcy, what does it mean? It means that your waste hauling rates should come down, and we've taken action recently with waste disposal agreements with various cities that allow us to reduce or keep your rates very low. So you'll see improvements in your waste hauling fees. It means that you'll see us take greater investment in our regional park system. we essentially have almost $10 million more a year to invest back into our regional park system. So that's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity for us. And also, we have additional funding available to our flood control district. So what that means is that behind the scenes, you see flood channels all throughout the county, and a lot of residents enjoy riding their bicycles and other things through them, but they exist in order to help protect the homes and businesses in our community from large rain events where a significant amount of water would come through your neighborhoods without those flood channels. And the county is always concerned about the 100-year flood, the big rain. And I know that it's hard to imagine today with the drought that we've had, but there are concerns, and we have to ensure that all of our residents are protected so that if you have a house or a business and it's in the floodplain, that water is adequately moving through these channels and away from your homes and businesses. And that is a tremendous investment. And there's a significant amount of work that happens every day that you all don't see because it happens behind the scenes. Also, the county runs a regional library system. And you all have a city library, but in other parts of the county, different cities will join with the county, and the county maintains the largest library system in this Orange County. So there's a lot of things that happen, and they're really exciting. So let me talk about a couple of things that we've talked about in this county for 10 years, but that we're actually moving forward on. Animal care shelter. So we've talked about, we have a 75-year animal care shelter in Orange, and different cities maintain their own animal systems. In Newport, I know that you have your own program, but for the county, we maintain that system for 14 of the cities in Orange County. And we are finally breaking ground. In fact, I believe this week we're pouring foundation out in Tustin to build a large animal care system that supports the 14 cities that are part of the county program. So we've talked about that forever, and we're actually doing that today. A new civic center. So our county civic center is over 50 years old, and the buildings are not in the best condition. And particularly when you visit, the parking is not adequate. Your experience is not as good as it could be. So the county actually is, the board has approved and the county is moving forward on our first wing of the Civic Center. It's 240,000 square foot, 6-story building. But the benefit of that is we're building a public counter on the first floor. So if you're a resident and you need to work with the county on a building permit, or you want to come in and get a copy of your marriage license, or however you interact with county, we're going to put in a first floor that has a large customer service counter. So it's a one-stop shop. So instead of coming to the county and going to a particular building for your marriage license, going to another building to file your assessment tax appeal for your property, you'll be able to go to one place and get all of your services. We're also working on a digital interface, because that is the future. And we're working on a digital customer service interface so that in time, if you interact with the county on business, you can do it from your home. And you'll be able to log on and see all the different ways in which you're interacting with the county and transact that business over the internet. So that's the future, and that's what we're working on as well. We're working on an upgrade to our 800 megahertz system. A lot of you may not know what that means. I know our local law enforcement partners absolutely do. But we built this radio system over 20 years ago. So remember when 911 happened and you heard all the news reports about how the port police couldn't talk to fire, who couldn't talk to local law enforcement, and there was a communication breakdown during an emergency. In Orange County, we have one system. All of the police departments, fire departments, et cetera, all use one common system. But we built that 20 years ago, and the infrastructure needs to be improved. And we've taken decisions, your city has taken action, and we're moving forward to upgrade that so that we maintain that one system approach that really helps protect our residents. And I think that's something that's really exciting. The revitalization of Dana Point Harbor. You have wonderful Newport Harbor. Dana Point Harbor is another wonderful area for us to interact with the ocean. I'm sure many of you have been out there. But that facility is fairly old, and we're out doing an RFP. And we're going to do a public-private partnership, and we're going to revitalize it so that your experience when you come out to the harbor is much better. There'll be new stores. There'll be improvements in infrastructure. We're working on a parking structure out there to improve the parking. So those are a lot of things that are really neat. We're also working on something that I'm excited about, which is our real estate portfolio. And this kind of gets to what my true interests are, which are in finance. We, as a county, have a large real estate portfolio that really has not been adequately utilized. And the reason why we are looking at that more carefully is that the county always has kind of limited ability to fund what it needs, road improvements or new libraries or other things. And our board and our county is not interested in raising taxes. We always want to work within our existing allocation of funds, but we need new revenue. So when we have idle real estate, we're trying to utilize that real estate to generate new revenue. As an example, we have closed landfills. These landfills sit idle and there's nothing happening on them. But if there's a way to responsibly reuse closed landfills and turn that into an opportunity to build out a business or lease it for revenue, and we use that infrastructure generated revenue to fund a new infrastructure in the county, we think that makes a lot of sense. We've recently done deals with a local hardware store on some vacant land. We're looking at out in Huntington Beach, we have Gothard closed landfill that we're looking at some options with the city. We're reusing space out near the Laguna Niguel City Hall, and we're building a large kind of mixed-use development out there that the city's been real happy with. So there's a lot of things happening on real estate, and it's really exciting for us to find ways to generate revenue to improve public service without increasing taxes. And I think that's something that's really important. So as a county, we spend a lot of time investing in infrastructure, finding new ways to fund. So let me talk about things that I'm really interested in because I'm a finance guy. I started off as an accountant. I did budgets in the county. I was our CFO, and I was lucky enough to be appointed to this position. The county's financial health. People always want to know what's happening with pensions, what's happening with our budget. How are we doing financially? I can tell you that in about 2002, the county was on fairly shaky ground. We didn't have strong reserves. We're about a $6 billion budget, and our reserve levels were under $200 million. And $200 million may sound like a lot, but in terms of a percentage of your budget, it was very, very low. Today, we're over $500 million. So our board has been able to grow our reserves to really protect the stability of county basic services, our law enforcement services, our general government, et cetera. One of the issues that we're really struggling with are things such as pension liability. And I know that those are things that the city's concerned about, other local government. And part of the problem is when you establish a pension, you have to make assumptions that an employee working with you will work however many years. And then how long will they live afterwards on their pension? So how much money do you have to collect every year in order to fund the benefits that they'll accrue over their lifetime? For the county, the challenge has been, and this is something that all pension systems are facing, is that employees are living longer. During the 20 years that I've worked at the county, the actuarial life expectancy has grown 4 years. So in 20 years, county employees live to about 83 now. Before, there was about 79. Secondly, we're going through a wave where the investment system is not returning investment returns at the level that was assumed actuarially. In our county, we assume that every dollar that we invest returns 7.25% a year. The returns are less than 5%, and our retirement system believes that will continue to be the case for at least the next 5 years because of the way in which the economy is recovering. That strong growth that we had coming out of the recession, that's kind of petered off, and you have this kind of slow, static growth in the economy that's very, very low. And we're not seeing those investment returns. So I think what you're going to hear a lot in the next 5 years is about the growth in pension liabilities and how your local government can manage that, because we have a responsibility and a requirement to fund these pensions, because once you give a benefit, you can't take them back. So every year, a greater and greater portion of our budget is being allocated to fund pensions. And what that means is that it affects our ability to provide the services that we really need to. So that's a balance that we have every year. The county, as well as I'm sure other municipalities, we've worked with our labor unions to modify the benefits to help reduce the impact on our pension liability. But it's a concern, it's real. And it will only get better over time, because what we have now is we have a second pension tier that the state put in place that really provides a lower level of benefit, but those are for new employees. So you really kind of have to pass through the system all of the existing employees that have a higher level of benefit, and you've got to get through the trough of this period where you have lower investment returns. And then the pension systems have to then make a conscious decision to reduce the actuarial assumptions and then just identify what that liability is and own it. And that's part of kind of the difficulty today, is that most pension systems don't want to face the reality that your investment returns probably should be lower than 7.5 or 7.25, and bring it down to what is closer to reality. And that is really the first step. And it's an awkward and difficult position for the elected pension boards, but it's something that I think you'll see more of in the next 5 years, because you can't ignore that. So I've spoken a lot about kind of what's happening in the county, things that I'm really excited about, but if it were interactive, I think it'd be more interesting. So if there's any questions about what's happening in the county, I'd love to address them. Yes?
Yeah, what are you going to do with those two aircraft hangars in Tustin?
So that's a more complicated question, but I'm happy to try it. So in the old Tustin Marine Base, there are two aircraft hangars. I think there are helicopter hangars. One is under the responsibility of the city of Tustin, so I can't speak to that. And the county has the other. On the county's hangar, there was a structural issue where the roof started to collapse. So there's an issue of maintaining that. And today, we have this hangar that you can't use because there's a structural issue. We currently don't have the money to come in and repair the hangar to the condition that it's in, but we have an opportunity to really work with the federal government to figure out, can they help us with it, or is it in such a state of disrepair that some other action needs to be taken. But today we're having those conversations, and we haven't made a decision in terms of what the long-term disposition of that is. So, yeah. So, I mean, the challenges, and I have some experience when I used to work out at El Toro, is when the federal government builds a structure, it's not to local code. That's generally the issue. It doesn't have a fire sprinkler system. These aren't federal buildings. You don't just open and say the public has access, because they've got to meet local codes. They have to be safe. And to take over a federal military building and reuse it for public use takes a tremendous amount of money. And the county currently today, we just don't have it in that particular facility. Well, it's awkward, because when the federal government closes bases, they essentially turn it over to the local authority and say it's yours. So it's up to the local authority to manage. They clean it so that it's adequate for the ultimate reuse, so that there's not an environmental issue. But if there's a building on it, it's up to you whether you raise it or you reuse it. How you utilize that is left to the local authority. So that really has to do with the original land use planning that was controlled by the local redevelopment authority, which is the city of Tustin. So that's more of a local government decision in terms of how the allocation of properties were was developed and planned. Yes?
What is the county's unfunded pension liability? Talking about pensions.
Sure. The county's portion is slightly less than $3 billion.
And how are you addressing that? An allocation of capital resources.
So there's two things that we did. The county worked with our retirement system, OSERS, and the pension liability is kind of like a mortgage, right? You have a liability amount, and then you amortize it. Typically, it was over 30 years, which meant that whatever your liability was, you'd paid it down over a 30-year period. In the last 5 years, we shortened that amortization period to 20. So we shortened it. So it's like taking your mortgage and increasing your your monthly payments, but shortening the long-term duration of it. So that's one action. The second action that we've taken is we have encouraged and really worked with OSERs to identify opportunities where we might make modifications to the type of benefits that we provide to employees so that they don't have an impact on adding any additional pension liability. So what that means is every retirement system, and maybe I might get too much into the weeds, but every retirement system has assumptions in terms of what your annual pay increases will be. They have assumptions on when your employees retire. They have a number of different assumptions. So we spent a lot of time with our retirement system to understand so that as we grant benefits and negotiate labor contracts, that they're done in a way where we minimize pension impacts. So if there's opportunities to trade one benefit that could have a pension impact versus another that would not, we're actively looking at those. So it's more of a management of how you're working with your bargaining group so that if you're spending $1, spend it in a way that doesn't impact pensions, but that might provide additional benefit to your members. So as an example, you could provide increased benefits in healthcare that might offset employee healthcare costs instead of a pay increase. So for an employee perspective, they look at it and say, well, I still got the same amount of net money in my pocket, but from a county perspective, we haven't added to any potential pension liability. So there's some kind of working relationship that we have with labor and with our pension system, but the best thing that we can do is to recognize the fact that our assumptions were too aggressive and bring those down. So Orange County, we used to have a rate of return assumption of 7.75. We brought that down to 7.25, which is more realistic, but still, I believe today, fairly aggressive. But if you look across the nation, the average is 7.5 to 8%. So we are actually more conservative than the average pension system. But probably it needs to be in the 6s or somewhat lower.
But the unfunded pension liability of $3 billion is like you're borrowing, the county's borrowing from OCRs, $3 billion at 7.25%.
True.
And you're earning on your funds, about 0.6%. So you've got a negative arbitrage. You can actually borrow cheaper than what your liability is, and that's what in the private sector they encourage you to do.
Yeah.
And how they value your pension liability.
So here's the part where you make an excellent point, and it makes sense from a numbers perspective, but here's the challenge with that. So the county is $6 billion. About half of what we do is federal services on behalf of state and federal government. So what you're suggesting is that if the county had a $3 billion pension fund, we could issue $3 billion in debt and borrow that money and pay down the pension liability because our borrowing rates are much lower. So in the 3% maybe for a taxable pension bond. So if you borrow at 3% and you pay down a 7.25% debt, aren't you better off? The problem becomes there's an IRS issue. So when we borrow that money and we pay down the debt, the only way for us to do it that the IRS will allow is if you borrow all $3 billion. You've got to pay down all of the pension liability in a bond. Otherwise, the costs associated with the borrowing, you're not allowed to allocate to your federal programs. So it becomes tricky because we have to eat all of the financing and borrowing costs. So it doesn't work out for the county portion, which is less than half of our overall budget. But we do make advance payments on our pensions annually, and that does save us, some money. So it saves us about $18 million a year by making advance payments. Yes, sir.
Sir, you made a pretty hasty generalization about citizens in Moon and Miguel. We're happy building down there. We're not a monolithic swath of 86,000 people. We have varying degrees of interests. And we're actually not happy about what's going on. We do know a few people that are happy about it. They do have here in Costa Mesa, they got the contract. They already started breaking ground. The city has
I'm not aware of the previous geological issues, but obviously that has to be part of the planning for the area.
Concerned about the waste of money, not so much about the geological, we'll get there eventually. I'd invite you to come down if you'd like to, we already invited the supervisors and they don't turn too many phone calls, but if you'd like to come down on the third Tuesday.
Well, I appreciate your concern, and I apologize if I made that too general a statement. In terms of what happened in Laguna Niguel, 'cause I'm happy to discuss it, is that we had an old county courthouse, and that courthouse was essentially the responsibility of the county in about 2002. In the early 2000s, the state came in and they separated the court system from the county government. So the state took all the court assets and we divvied up property that through a negotiation process. And the county ended up with the old South County Courthouse as an asset. The state did not want to have that property, and they didn't revitalize it. So essentially today, it's fenced off, and it's an old building, and there's nothing being done with it. The city, well, it's empty. Okay, well, there is a little fence, but by the parking lot, so. We don't need to have an argument over the fencing, but it's a building that's not being used, right? So the county sold some land to the city, and the city built a new civic center. The county also, on the property, built a new library. So this is a super block of a civic center that has a new civic center, a new library, and an old abandoned building. So the county worked with the city representative, who's currently the assistant city manager, participated in our RFP scoring panel, and we jointly selected a third party to come in and redevelop that area, which really means tearing down an old building, putting up some residential, putting up some restaurant, some retail. It's a mixed-use development. And so when I characterize it as the residents being happy, I apologize for that, but that comes from us working together with the city to jointly plan a project. Ultimately, if the city residents are unhappy, that's something that they've got to express to their city council, et cetera. But the city government was a part of that planning process. Yes. There's a question in the back.
I believe there's 2 homeless shelters in the works, one in San
Yes.
Diego and in Anaheim. Are those going to be county funded or are those
Yes.
by each city?
Yes. Well, so it's a combination. So the county had made 3 attempts to open a homeless shelter. On the third one, we were successful. We were successful because Anaheim, which is the city in which the shelter is being developed in, identified the site. And the county came in with our resources, and we believe it's going to cost about $7 million to put that up. We're committing that money to build the shelter. The city of Anaheim, the city of Fullerton, and others have contributed money to help fund that. So it's a joint cooperative process. That should be up by the end of 2017, we believe. We also are running a transition center in Santa Ana. That's currently open, and it's had some beneficial impacts to our civic center.
Does that mean that we're going to get rid of that homeless city that's developed around the county seat? And you know, in the urine-soaked, area up there?
It's not an easy answer, but it is terrible. It really is. But what I can tell you today is instead of the homeless that have kind of taken encampment of the Civic Center, they've been there for the 20 years that I've been there. It's worse today, absolutely. It's probably 2 times as bad as it was when I first started in the county. But the homeless individuals are now in our courtyard project. The challenge we have is the stuff. And they leave their stuff where it's at. And we are working on a plan to migrate them out into transitional housing. But that's difficult. We've got about 75 beds coming online in Santa Ana. We have gone through, and of the 450 homeless in our Civic Center, we have 60 that are document ready, which means that they have a case manager, that they've got identification, that we've pre-qualified them for housing. So our goal is to get them treated, stable, and the ones that we can, transition them out into transitional housing. And really, it's a slow process, but you've got to do it 30, 40, 50 at a time, and that's what we're working on.
What is also kind of like the tents and homeless community under the,
Yeah. Yeah, I had a tour yesterday of our flood channels, and there's a lot of homeless that are in the riverbeds, and it's difficult. There's two issues. One, you've got the public riverbeds, and then two, you have the private, which really are separated, and they're there for maintenance purposes for our flood employees and our public works staff. So where it's private, you can enforce no trespassing, and you'll probably see us be much more assertive on that in the coming year. Where it's public, there are challenges because the ACLU is watching this very carefully. There's been past litigation on the issue, and I expect that if we're aggressive on the public side, that we'll end up in court. Yes?
Just to clarify, the 10 million that's now available to spend due to the payoff of the
Mm-hmm.
is that 10 million a year?
A year.
Thank you, Frank. That was a pretty thorough discussion of what you guys do at the county. I know the county touches Newport Beach in a lot of places. We actually have our own landfill that maybe you guys could figure out something to do with it, just sitting out there at Bonita Canyon. Oh, you're good. I was working on that when I was on city council. So it's taking a little bit of time, but it's a fabulous piece of property if you can figure out what to build on top of an old landfill. So that's our program. I do want to omitted a oh, yes, Mayor. I was going to just say, Mayor caught me in a little faux pas. I omitted to introduce two of our special group guests here. So this morning we have the Fbla, the Future Business Leaders of America group from Corona Del Mar High School. So why don't you guys all stand up? Wow. And not to be outdone, we also have the DECA group from Harbor High School here with us this morning. So thank you all for coming. They're here this morning. Their students are all interested in business, and I think the programs are a little bit different, but generally interested in business and getting to know more about business. And we've established a relationship with the high schools that hopefully they'll be here on a regular basis. So thank you for coming this morning. You're always welcome. Yeah, we'd like to take a group picture if you could after we're done. So students stay behind, and as well as adult advisors. And then also wanted to point out our chair of our board, Joe Du Bois, is here with us this morning. And just quickly, a couple of events that we have coming up. So we got actually a real busy week next week. We have the second meeting of our Inspire group on May 8th. That's going to be a luncheon at the I'm sorry, I wrote May. Or actually, I wrote November, but it looks like May. At November 8th, well, it's May 8th, we plan in advance. November 8th, our Inspire group, it's going to be at the Pacific Club. We got a great speaker. We had our first meeting. It's a women's group, actually. It's for women. Want to get, men too, but I was there at the last one. There was about 67 women, and me, Joe, and and actually you were there as well. Yeah, Max was there. So, but yeah, it's focused on women and women's issues and how to succeed in business and things surrounding that. So, if you're interested in that, that'll be on November 8th for lunch at the Pacific Club. On the 9th, we have our new member reception. So if you're a new member in the last year, or you're even thinking about membership, and I see a few of you out here, you're welcome to that. That's going to be at the Five Crowns. From 5:30 to 7. On May 11th, we have a big event, Citizen of the Year. November 11th. I don't know why I'm stuck in May. I think I wrote May here. When I get down to December, it does say December. November 11th, sorry. We're having our Citizen of the Year event at the Balboa Bay Resort, and actually the general manager is here with us this morning, Sam Elraba. And we're honoring, and it's actually fitting that we're in this room this morning because we're honoring John and Elizabeth Starr. And if you don't know the Starrs, they're an older couple. They've probably spent 40, maybe 50 years in service to our community of Newport Beach, as well as the county in general. And this facility in particular, when we were fundraising, trying to find the money for it, they raised $2 million as seed money for this main library here. And this is the next to our beaches is the most visited facility in the city of Newport Beach. We get over 1 million people that come through our library in a year. So we were proud to honor them, and that'll be at the Balboa Bay Resort. May 16th, we have our monthly business luncheon. Did I say it again? Okay. We'll edit all this out in the final cut. Don't worry. Sorry. November 16th, we'll have our business luncheon at the Bahia Corinthian Yacht Club. November 24th is going to be our mixer at Bayside Restaurant. And not to be undone by our speaker today, but we will have our city manager, which is basically, he's the city manager for the county. And our counterpart here, Dave Kiff, will be our speaker on December 1st at Wake Up Newport. So hopefully you can all come out for that. Thank you for coming. Please grab something to eat on the way out. And if you're not a member of the Newport Beach Chamber of Commerce, you should be. See Jim Villers after the meeting. And don't forget to come up for the picture. Thank you.